How are you? I decided to come back to my regular spot. My fluoro I noticed last time was casting shadow over my video, so I thought I would come back to my normal spot. And you know what? The mess behind me is real, and I'm sure that if I looked in your craft rooms, you'd probably have the same type of stuff going on behind you that I do. So keeping it real. Now I'm just going to try and get my little laptop going so I don't have to stand up and colour, so hopefully that works in. And yes, so here we are, Thursday. We're going to do some colouring today. When I do my watercolouring, I generally have a load of colours that I work with, but sometimes, you know, that's not always available. You know, I'm lucky because I've got every colour ink pad. But if you don't have every colour ink pad and you still want to get the watercolour look going on, you know, how do you do it with just, for example, 2 ink pads, which is what I'm going to use today. So I'm all set up, I'm working. I think I can, just let me click on that and we should be up and running. Hello, whoever's watching, you can jump in and say hi, just so that I know that we've got something. Okay, so that's all working. So let me flip us around. We're just going to get straight into it today, and I'll show you the way that I colour with very minimal supplies. Okay, so let's swing around. Okay, there we go. I'm just going to zoom in. Shift me over a little bit, so hopefully I can see on my little laptop here what's actually going on. Alright, so I've stamped the flower, and now I'm not going to be able to remember what the name of the flower the stamp set is, but that's okay, I can come back later on and let you know. And all I'm going to use is Old Olive and Calypso Coral. They're the 2 colours that I'm going to use today. So the first thing that I usually do, I'm just going to make sure I'm all... There's always a really big lag when you go from what you're seeing on your screen to what's actually showing. Okay, so we're just going to do the Old Olive to start with. Good morning, Lois. Excellent. All working. Okay, so I've got my aqua painter and I've got my cloth beside me. I've also got my cup of tea, which will probably be cold by the time I get to it, but that's fine. Now I've stamped in the basic black archival, and I've found that you do need to let it dry. Like I know with the Stays On we could stamp it and then go straight into it, but I've found with the archival one that you do need to allow it time to dry, and then it won't do all the bleeding. So for my first layer of colour, what I normally do is just make it a fairly wet wash. So I'm just going to come in and put a fair bit of water down on my palette there, and perhaps maybe not that much water, and then that'll be my first. So you can see it's quite a runny wash. So this is if I'm only working with normally, you know, I probably do 3 colours on the leaves, so but sometimes it's not always, you know, sometimes you just don't have all those colours, or you're off and about and you don't want to take all those colours with you. So we're going to try and get the same type of look with minimal supplies. So I'm just going to set that aside because I want that to dry a little bit, and I'm going to swing around and I'm just going to do the same type of thing with the Calypso Coral. So whoop, this one's got a fair bit of ink. So make sure your aqua painter's all dried off. Make that a fairly wet one, and then I'm not too particular with like if I was like my first wash is always just all over. I'm not usually too particular with you know, doing the petals separately, and so that sort of just gets thrown on there. Good morning, Sandra. Good morning. Oh, how am I going to pronounce your name? Lucia? And Lisa. Whoops, hang on a minute. I'm going scrolling the wrong way. And Tina's joined. Okay. So just chucking that on, and that's really quite a rough throw down too. So now you can still see that that's a little bit wet. I think you can still see that it's a little bit wet. I can see it's wet anyway. So then I'm going to come back to my green, and instead of using that runny area, I'm going to pick up those areas there, the deeper ones, and then I'm just going to come back in and give it a little bit more. It's probably best if it does dry in between, but I'm not going to go all the way, so I'm just going to come like 3/4 of the way. And same for this one. Good morning. I think I said good morning, Tina and Lisa. Okay, and then just a little bit around there, a bit down the side, and whoops, that was a little bit messy. Okay, and then I sort of set that aside to dry again. I might actually try and get that to dry a little bit better. My Calypso's nice and dry though, so I'm just going to swing it around, because I know that if I paint it the right way up, then I'm going to put my hand in the old olive and it is going to end up with a muck. Yes, this is watercolor paper. Okay, so again, just thinking that you can see what I'm doing. Because of the lag, I can't quite tell. Okay, so, oopsie, you know what? I'm going to end up in a world of pain, you know that, don't you? I have to do it this way because I can't see where my shadowing is. Okay, just, I'm going to have to be careful not to stick my finger in it. So then, picking up the deeper colour, I just sort of come in. And for this style, I'm not going to be overly fussed with the blending. I just sort of chuck that down too. And, you know, and doing, I mean, colouring with, you know, umpteen dozen ink pads is really nice if you've got the time. But if you don't have the time to do that, then there are different other styles of colouring that you can actually do. Doesn't always have to be the same, does it? Okay, so I'm trying to follow a little bit of shadow here, trying to find where the petals would go. I'll have to hold this up in a little bit so you can see. I don't think the camera's actually picking up the depth in it. So, chucking it down. See, this one's good because this one actually completely dried in between. And if you, I'll show you with the old olive when I come back to it. Like this one's actually working quite well. See, and the other thing is that the Calypso Coral doesn't really have, you know, like I think if I was going to do a whole stack of colours for this one, I'd probably put in, I know this is going to sound weird, I'd probably put in Cajun Craze, although that will take away some of the brightness. I'm just blending a little bit, just a little bit, but not quite so much. So let me stand up and show you. So there you can see, and it's quite a messy colouring. It's not, you know, the edges haven't blended in nicely. I mean, I suppose you could. See, this is the problem where I start going, oh, I'm just going to blend those in a little bit more. But you don't have to. You know, the style, there's so many different styles of watercolouring that you don't actually have to do that. So, so I'm happy with that. That's turned out really well. I'm actually going to come back with my green, but because I perhaps did a little bit too much water to start with, I'm just going to squeeze it again. And this is an old style pad I'm using too. I really should update some of my ink pads. So now I've got, you know, a nice big splodge, you know, intense ink going on, and I'm just going to keep it at that. I'm not going to add any water or anything, and then I can come in again, make sure that my brush is quite dry this time. And then I can just add a little bit more depth with that colour. So this is only going to be a real quick video today, which is fine because this afternoon I've actually got my eldest son home today. He's probably listening to me too. He's probably he's going to do his subject selection today, so we're going to go in and have career council meetings and all that sort of stuff this afternoon. So he gets the day off. So I've got to take time off this afternoon, and then I'm forcing him to go and get his L's. Okay, so there we go. There's watercolouring with just 2 ink pads, and you can still create a great deal of depth by just having those 2 colours. So, and you'll notice that that's the card that I've had on my blog for a little while, so I'll just bring those cards in. So these are the ones that we did at Link and Learn, and generally at Link and Learn I like to take my time colouring, and some of the other girls just like to go quite fast, so I'm always the last one to colour. But you can see here that, you know, there's a lot of depth going on there, and that was only the 2 ink pads as well. And then this one was the Sugar Plum, which I think is purple. A lot of people think is pink, but I'm thinking it's purple. Hi, Megan. So I was really pleased with the way that these ones turned out. Like I'd had my colours picked out, and then I was looking through the designer series paper, and this one's got like a tiny little bit of blue, and I thought, oh, that'll lift it nicely. But I couldn't think of what I would put up the top here, and then I remembered the washi paper, and I had the washi tape, I should say, and I had received one of the packs as a prize when we were in Phuket, and the top colour there is just a nice fine little washi tape, and it happened to be the same colour as my blue, so it tied everything in perfectly and just lifted the cards a little bit. So if you're wondering about like the rule of colour, like I'll sometimes talk about the rule of colour, and I've got what, 1, 2, 3 colours in each one, I think. So my main colour is obviously the Calypso Coral, and you use like I think it goes down like in quarters, so I've used a lot of Calypso Coral. Then Old Olive is my second colour, so I've used a reasonable amount of Old Olive in here. You've got the Old Olive leaves, and it picks up in the leaves in here. And then my third colour is the Soft Sky, so you use a minimal amount of that. So this is where these 2 colours pick in, and it's the same with this one. So I've used, you know, the bulk of my colour is Sweet Sugar Plum. Oh, I'm having a brain drain this morning. And then that's the same thing. So you sort of go down, like the more colours that you introduce, the less of that colour that you use. So you have a majority colour, then you have, you know, half of it in another colour, and then a quarter of it, and so on. So if I was to add another colour, it would just be a tiny amount. So, well, I guess white is another colour because I've used the twine and also, you know, the doily, so, and a big piece of white here. So I guess you could call white as another colour for that. So there you go. There's your little class this morning on colouring with very minimal supplies and still getting depth out of those 2 ink pads. You can still do it easily. Okay, I'm going to head off because I've got some other things to get done this morning before we go and make sure Big Boy's there studying for his driver's license. And we shall see you next Thursday. I think everything will go to plan, and we'll come in and make another card then. Okay, we'll see you later. Thanks for joining me. Oh, I'm going to go press the stop button on the laptop, but I need to actually press the stop button on my phone. So thanks for joining me. See you later.